Finance Committee, we have been working on some audio issues, and we wanted to make sure the public could hear everything on YouTube. So that's why we are starting just a few minutes late, but we think that we have all of those issues resolved, and we're glad that you're all joining us today. We'll go ahead and have some introductions. I'm Cindy Davis. I'll be chairing this meeting. Grateful to be here with all of you. And let's go ahead. Member Bogus, I think, was the next person I saw. Come on, Member Bogus. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good morning. I'm Christina Bogus. I represent Taylorsville, Kearns, West Jordan.
Thanks so much. And Vice Chair Kelly.
I'm Cole Kelly. I represent District 12, and I like the Wyoming shirt. I'm sporting the Ohio State Wrestling. I have an athlete that competes for them now. So
I think let it never be said that we are not supportive of our higher ed partners.
This is Member Booth, and I'm representing District 13, which is Nebo School District and Provo City School District. Happy to be here.
So great to have you. Thank you. And Chair Hymas.
Yeah, thank you. Matt Hymas. I represent District 10, Tooele County, Western Utah County, and West.
You cut out for just a minute, but I think you might have said maybe Tooele area or something like that. Chair Hymas may cut a little bit in and out, as well as possibly Vice Chair Kelly there and Member Booth. We have three today that might be a little bit in and out, and we certainly understand that these things come up. Let's go ahead and we have two staff introductions today, and we have, is it Mackey or McKay? And Amanda Hartzler.
It's Mackey.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Hi, yes, my name is David Mackey. I work in data and statistics. I've been at the board now for about 8 years, I think now. So.
Great.
And anything else you'd like to know?
Tell us something that is interesting about you that we wouldn't know just from work, that you're willing to share.
I'm a big baker and cook. I cook everything, and at the house, that's all we do. So.
That is fascinating. You don't often expect to hear that from data and statistics, but I suppose there are a lot of numbers involved in baking too.
Yep, there is.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for all the work you do for us here at USBE.
Thank you.
Let's have Amanda Hartzler.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Amanda Hartzler. I've been at USBE for 2 years now, working on the data and statistics team. I do mainly federal EdFax reporting. Interesting fact, I'm currently training for a half marathon.
Wow. And how do you do that? How much do you have to run per week?
Well, I'm not very consistent right now, but supposedly like 4 times a week, but really 2.
4 times a week, but 2. And how far do you run on those 2 times?
My next run is going to be 9 miles. So.
Oh my word. I'm just unbelievably impressed. We have Director Bruff with his hand up. Director Bruff.
Thank you. They are very humble, but both of them, and just bragging about them, they are absolutely wonderful, and in my mind, absolutely essential in the work that they do. David Mackey is just fantastic in his AI understanding, in his analytics skills, in R, in Python, in SQL, and just about anything I ask him to do, he gets after and gets done. Amanda has been just one of the best hires that we've had. and they're all wonderful hires. So, I can't say one's better. It's like, who's your favorite child or who's your favorite student? It's kind of hard to say. Um, they are all our favorites, but she has just done so wonderfully well in understanding the complexities of the federal reporting requirements, getting a handle on all the schedules, getting and back calendaring to get that information set and ready, reaching out to the different departments where we need to testing and double testing and working again with the federal partners for some really complex and sometimes mind-numbingly boring for some getting into the detail, and she's just has done a wonderful job. So I just wanted to sing their praises for a moment because they, like the rest of the team, but these two are just the cream. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that. We appreciate that. And again, David and Amanda, thank you. We're just, it's so nice to put a face with a name, and we appreciate the work you do again. So thanks. And clearly, Director Bruff has glowing remarks about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on then. We don't have any necessarily requests for public comment, but we do have some members of the public that are going to join in, and possibly one board member may want to. And so let's go ahead and we were going to start with 1.2. I think let's look at let's put 1.3 above 1.2 because I know Dr. Voorhees said that she has some more information for us. She's been researching the numbers on the money for 1.3. And also, I wondered if Member Bogus may want to. Did you want to speak to this, Member Bogus, or on action 1.3, request for use of Utah State Board Education discretionary funds for special education advocacy training?
I can. I'm happy to speak now. I'm also happy to speak after
Okay.
Superintendent Voorhees speaks. Either is fine.
You could do you want to give a little intro and then she could share the research and then
Well, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So, if people don't know who Karen Cunningham is, she is a national speaker. Recently wrote an excellent book called The Epic IEP, and I've been to her trainings. I think they're fantastic. I think they're great for educators. In particular, I think they're great for parents navigating a very complex and an interesting system when it comes to special education and IEP. And our staff did great work investigating what it would cost to bring her here for an intensive training. And I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Voorhees to discuss what they found. Some of the things they did find were interesting. And so I think the committee will find that as interesting as I did. So if it's okay, Chair Davis, I'd like to hand it over to Superintendent Voorhees.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Davis. Thank you, Board Member Bogus, Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement. So when Board Member Bogus brought this idea forward, we did some research to be able to get you some information about the logistics and the costs of bringing Karen Mayer Cunningham to Utah. The original request was for two-day trainings, one in the north and one in the south. So we priced that, and then we talked to Ms. Cunningham about some other options that you might want to consider as well. So overall costs, the speaker cost is $15,000 per two-day training. And this is a two-day training that she has all organized and all planned that she does all over the country. So it's not like she would design this for us. It's a training that she already has designed, has already presented, will be presenting. We would just set up the time. So it's not like it's not like Utah customizable. It's already designed. So that's why the cost is set at the $15,000 for 2 days. So if we brought her here twice, one in the south and one in the north, the cost would be $30,000. If, as Board Member Bogus had asked me to look into, we wanted to pay for parents to come to the training if they met the state rate, if they were more than, or the state requirements, more than 50 miles away, for two nights of hotel, which would be the night before the training starts and the night between the 2 days of training, it's about $100. The state rate is about $100 a night, and then that would be for a couple or for, an individual parent. So depending on the number of people that you wanted to include, that would be $100 per couple or per person. Since I created this memo, we did receive information. So we put out some requests for costs for venues to be able to hold a training that had a couple hundred people. I specifically asked my assistant to find places that could hold at least a couple hundred people. Davis Conference Center, if you think about that one that's up in Layton, would be about $5,000 without food and about $10,000 with food. The UVU Conference Center. So I'll tell you this one, then I get back to it. The UVU Conference Center is about $13,000 without food, about $38,000 with food. We also have requests out for the Conference Center in St. George, and a conference center in Salt Lake. And I'm guessing that they'll be in between those two costs. But then Board Member Bogus and I talked a few days ago, and after I had talked to the executive director of the Utah Parent Center about the best options that they have had recently with providing training for parents and really having good attendance. And they recommended that the training be 1 to 2 hours after the dinner hour during the week, as opposed to 2 full days or even a full day of training. They've had better luck having parents join after dinner. And so we contacted Ms. Cunningham again and asked her if there was any way that she would be able to provide the training in chunks over several weeks, like on a Thursday night, over several weeks virtually. And she is willing to do that. She hasn't done that before, so we'd have to work out the pricing for that. It would be the same cost minus travel. So it would probably be about $12,000, but we would have to work that. I mean, she'd have to figure that out once we had the logistics. But that way, you wouldn't have to pay for hotels. Obviously, you wouldn't be paying for food. Likely, some people would not attend every session, so the attendance might not be consistent from session to session. But that is another option that I wanted to bring forward as you are considering. The one last thing I want to bring up is that we did bring Ms. Cunningham to Utah 2 years ago to present a keynote. So just, a 60-minute keynote at the transition conference, post-secondary transition conference for students with disabilities. So this is educators and some parents. There were about 25 parents that registered. The majority were also work for the Utah Parent Center, who come together to talk about how to support students as they transition from high school into the workforce or higher education or independent living. It's that post-school transition. So she did come 2 years ago, and almost 2 years ago now. The feedback was largely positive on a scale from 1 to 5, or the average rating of the people who filled out the survey, which of course not everyone fills out the survey, was about a 3.9. But as I stated in the uh, board backup, there were a couple concerns about her humor and whether or not it resonated related to individuals with disabilities, which is odd, I'll admit, because that's what she does. I mean, to Board Member Bogus's point, that she's very invested in supporting students with disabilities. But anyway, that is the information I have. Board Member Bogus, was there anything else we discussed that I haven't shared?
I don't believe so. I think you've done a great job, Superintendent Voorhees. And for the committee's discussion, it is my opinion that to bring her here in person is not a good use of our resources, specifically with the data surrounding attendance at long events for families with special needs children. I think if we are going to explore an option, the virtual option is the better choice. And I think as I had conversations with Superintendent Voorhees and really thought about this, educators can come to something in the evening too.
True.
There's PD credit for that. And I think that the $12,000 to $15,000 virtual option is a much better idea as we look into this. That doesn't mean I'm averse to the other idea. I really was kind of gung-ho about it, but the more I've learned and really processed that information, I don't think that's a good use of our funds, especially when attendance is typically low for those kinds of events. And so I really appreciated the statistics and the work that our team did on that. And I'm happy to let the crew debate.
Yeah, all this information is really helpful, and thank you both for kind of trying to flesh it all out. It's really helpful for all of us on the committee, I think. And Chair Hymas has a question. Go ahead, Chair Hymas.
Thank you. So I appreciate the report from Deputy Superintendent Voorhees and also Christina's comments, because I agree with her. That's a hefty price tag. Will you just remind me, Chair or Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent Leah, is this a required training? How did this get brought up? I can't remember. I know I remember the discussion, but I can't remember if this was required or if this was just something that we thought, hey, let's look into this. This is helpful.
So, Matt or Chair Hymas, I had made a motion in the regular board meeting to direct our staff to look into this.
So
Okay.
it would be an optional training for parents and educators.
Right. That's right. That's right. Thank you for that reminder. That's helpful. I couldn't remember. Okay. Thank you both.
I kind of like the virtual option because if a parent doesn't have access to care for their children, they can still participate in the training from home and it would be accessible to them. I think that's a pretty good idea to
If I
make
may,
that change.
Chair Davis, my conversation with Superintendent Voorhees was very enlightening. Just things that, as my children get older, I don't think about as often as I did when they were younger. And especially considering special needs children, I just think the virtual option is a better solution. And I would love to make that motion if we're done
Please.
this. I would just move that.
Oh, whoops, I see one more hand and then we'll get it.
that's
Vice Chair
fine.
Kelly.
Superintendent Voorhees said the ranking was 3.9, but on a scale of what was that?
5.
1 to
scale of
5, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
1 to
with
5, yeah.
five being excellent and 1
Okay.
being poor.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't on a scale of 1 to 10. So,
Deputy
Okay, so-
Jones.
Chair Davis, have we arrived at an exact number of the estimate? I know it's an estimate, and if so, what's that number? And then before a motion is made, it just helps to, if we could look at the discretionary funds report that we also put in the backup. Because depending on what that number is, I would recommend probably using, if you go up to the upper right-hand corner and look at the state funds balance. What is that one? I can't remember. No, yeah, my thing was locked. So you have about 44,003, what is that? 439.33 left in state funds. Would that cover or a portion of, oh, Deborah's gonna like high five me here. So anyway, yeah.
Deputy,
I'm not clear on what the estimate is. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not clear on what the final estimate is then.
let's go to Deputy Voorhees and then let's go to Assistant Superintendent Jacobson.
Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent Student Achievement. Deputy Jones, we don't have a final number. She figured it would be about $12,000 because the $15,000 that she charges per 2-day training includes travel. So she hasn't done this before, so she would have to figure that out, but we figured about 12. But
Well,
let me offer this
right.
to the conversation.
Okay.
At only $12,000, we could fund it with IDEA funds.
Okay.
The size of the training, if we had a venue and we were paying people and it was $30,000, because I didn't budget that, I would have to go to OSEP to ask my project officer to change a budget line.
Yeah.
But if it's only $12,000, that won't meet the threshold of having to ask my project officer to change the budget.
Okay.
So we could actually fund, 12-ish thousand dollars with IDEA funds just as a consideration.
But if she comes in at 15, and all I'm asking.
No, we'd still be okay at that. It's when it gets into it's when it gets into the 6-digit figures that it's 10% of the budget line. If I change any budget by more or less than 10%, then I have to go to the project officer, but that amount wouldn't do it.
Right. So all I ask, Chair Davis, is that as part of the motion, we try to make it clear, because my understanding or thought is that the motion would be a recommendation to the board of where the funding should come from, and that the board
Yes.
the training.
So it will,
that's
the
all I'm
motion
saying.
will
So
need to include the
got some
amount and which fund.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
yes, thank you. And Assistant Superintendent Jacobson?
My comment is kind of irrelevant at this point, but I just wanted to point out that there's also that 17,000 there. That's the tax delay money. That is also unrestricted state funding. So it's really the 17,044 that's available.
Okay, that may be helpful for other agenda items that we have coming up too. Chair Hymas?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to hear that we can find the money if this goes through. I'm having a hard time understanding why this is important, or not important, but why this would be worth $10,000+ I am struggling to understand that. I know that we have a lot of things coming our way in which we're trying to support and fund. I'm not convinced that this is the best use of money at this time. Just putting that out there, and again, it's just struggling to understand why the need is here. I get the idea. I think it's great. $12,000 to bring somebody in virtually. My goodness, I'm in the wrong profession. But I'm not there yet. So anyway, thank you, and I'll wait for comments and a vote.
I have some hands up, and then I have a question for Dr. Voorhees. Maybe you can help us. What that would do to your budget if we did take 12,000, if you'd use 12,000 for this training, and if that's comparable to what other people charge for training, and is that reasonable? I don't know. And I'll take some other hands while you're thinking about that, Dr. Voorhees. Deputy Jones?
I think it's worth noting too that if I understand correctly, so through you, Madam Chair, this can offer a continuing education credit to our special education teachers. So can we clarify that as well? So there is some opportunity for, and especially where it's virtual, where, would cater to that need that
The
our teachers
relicensing
have,
points.
yeah, for the licensing points and things like that. So I'm not trying to justify it or anything, but that could be a consideration for the committee, is that there's some value add there that, it's an additional opportunity to earn credit towards the licensing requirements. So.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Voorhees, it looks like we're back to you.
So
Sorry, what, really quick beforehand, let me get
Uh-huh.
Chair Hymas, your hand is still up. Did you have another question before Dr. Voorhees responds? Oh, it's down. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Voorhees.
No, thank you and apologies.
No problem.
But no, it's not a huge, I mean, for our professional learning budget, it wouldn't be a huge budget change. However, also remember that we also provide 2 days of special education law training every summer. And it's the most well-attended training of anything we do in this agency. And we don't pay people to come or pay for their hotels or anything, but last year we had 1,600, I think, people registered. It isn't specifically designed for parents. It's more designed for educators, but we do have parents that come every year, but educators definitely come. So I'm not sure that a multi-week evening training would be as big a draw for educators because they already get the special ed law conference.
Yeah.
But it might be, I don't know.
If they were looking at more relicensure points, perhaps, if they were on their every 5 years you have to renew your licensure, maybe would they get licensure points from this?
Yeah,
For
we
the
can
seat
work
hours?
it. Yeah, we can certainly work that out.
Okay. Any other questions, or if I miss a hand, speak up. I keep scrolling between the participants, making sure I'm trying to catch everybody. So I'm not seeing any hands. Do you want to make the motion, Member Bogus?
Chair
Yeah.
Davis, I just want to say I need to jump off because I need
Yes.
to go to standards and assessment.
Thanks so much for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Member Bogus.
I move that the committee recommends that the board provide the use of IDEA funding for I'm just going to call it a special education virtual intensive training to be held at a time to be determined.
Okay, can you repeat how you said that? And we'll change the wording on the motion.
Yeah, I said I move that the committee recommends that the board use IDEA funds for an intensive special education training to be held virtually at times to be determined. And if we want to use Karen's name, we probably should, but it's up to you, Chair Davis.
What's her last name?
Karen Cunningham.
Okay. So perhaps we could put Karen Cunningham in there. At the end, you could just say taught by Karen Cunningham.
Yeah. And that gives us 30 days for that to flesh out that dollar amount.
Yeah.
And
I
if I
have a question
would
too
love to-
about it, but
please.
you go ahead and finish, and then I'll get Cole's or Vice Chair Kelly's hand, and then I'll ask my question after.
Well, I just, after the research by our staff, I think this is the best of the options that we have. Her trainings are very different from the law conference that I attended this summer. And the one thing I love about what she does is she's very conversational. She's very personal. She's very direct. She understands federal education law better than almost anybody I've ever seen engage with. and she is very skilled at helping parents navigate the system. She has an entire thing online, if that's your thing. But I don't know how many times I have been in meetings and I have said, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, we've never thought about that. And that idea was not Christina's. It actually came from the learning that I gained from Karen's trainings. Shared different OSEP letters, and I've shared different things in different spaces that actually got things moving along. And that didn't come from my post-baccalaureate work. It didn't come from my credential training. It actually came from Karen's training. I think it's very valuable. And I think we're going to have to invest time in advertising. But should this be well attended, I think it would be very, very beneficial to our state and beneficial to our parents and possibly our teachers should they choose to attend it. It has been extraordinarily valuable in my time as an educator. So I would just hope that we could forward it to the board and have that discussion there.
Okay, thank you. Discussion to the motion, Vice Chair Kelly?
Yeah, I think Member Bogus, I think, answered one of my two questions in her comment there, and it was more about just why specifically this individual, and I was kind of curious to ask Deputy Superintendent Jones what the process of is this something that we would need to put out for an RFP and people put in and then we choose from those who apply to come and present, or are we, I mean, can we go ahead and say this is the person we've already chosen and we want to approve this for our board? So,
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so based on and this is why it was important to, try to finalize a number, is that not that amount, the $12,000 is well below the single purchase limit. So no, we wouldn't have to do an RFP for it, just
Okay.
because, of that particular criteria. So.
Okay.
That's a great question. I
Yeah.
should have thought of that too. I had a question. Would she be comfortable if a member from our staff was on the training if she has extensive experience in federal IDEA, but if there were pieces of our state code that sort of butt up right against to certain pieces of federal, and would she be comfortable with our staff texting her or speaking up and saying, now remember, our state adjusts this way? Because I would, just make sure we don't perpetuate any misconception if it's federal, sometimes goes right up next to certain things in state and they're nuanced.
So to be fair, Chair Davis, our staff has interfaced with her team. Based on what I have observed, I would say I don't think she would be uncomfortable with that. But I do believe maybe that should be a question that we ask, because I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf. But at the trainings that I've observed and the other things, there's sometimes there's a third person, you can hear them talking, or they'll slide her a paper or different things. And so I can't imagine that would be a problem, but I do think it should be verified before this goes to the full board.
Okay, so maybe we make that a little piece of I don't know if it needs to be a piece of the motion, but we're just an understanding that we're gonna, maybe Dr. Voorhees could ask that question of her if she's the one communicating with her or whoever on her staff.
Well, I think in the report next month, we should ask Dr. Voorhees to please clarify that. So
Okay.
as it goes to the full board, we have a clear understanding of that, because if our staff is unable to drop Utah code into a chat box on a virtual training, I would have issues with that. And like I said, I've been to a number of these and they've all been in that realm, but I don't want to speak on someone's behalf.
Sure.
It's not my
Okay.
place.
I'm fine, personally, I'm fine moving ahead with this if we have that conversation in the interim between now and full board.
Yeah, I think having that conversation would be very fruitful and looking at what that looks like and how we're going to interface. I know that our staff is very good at setting up webinars and things to that end, but I am excited about the possibility. I'm excited about the board talking about this, and hopefully the board members will research Karen and her work and look at her work online, because it has been life-changing in my life as an educator. And I've attended our SPED Law conference 2 years in a row. Excuse me, it's fantastic. But there are things that I've learned that have been instrumental in how I interface and do my job. And so I would love to see other people grow in that capacity as well.
Great. I don't see any other hands. If you have a hand, speak up. Otherwise, we have a motion on the floor that the committee recommends that the board use IDEA funds for a virtual intensive special education training for parents taught by Karen Cunningham. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, so that passes with member Hymas opposed. And then let's now go back up to agenda item 1.2. And we'll work on the state fiscal year 2020 public education budget review and recommendation for adoption. And I'm just going to say to the public that our staff has been working like day and night on this. It takes so much work to get this ready for this committee meeting. And you may not have seen it early on in backup, but that's why, because there's just so much work that goes into this, and we appreciate you. So we have Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones and Assistant Superintendent of Operations Deborah Jacobson, who are leading out on this.
So, Madam Chair, at your direction, I think if we could just go right to Deborah or Assistant Superintendent Jacobson, she'll present it. Remember, this is, these are estimates and stuff, and so it's an adoption of the estimates that are provided to us by the legislature in the end. So, subject to the presentation. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Cami, can you pull up the presentation? Perfect. Okay, Assistant Superintendent Deborah Jacobson. Today we get to talk about the budget for FY27. We'll kind of go over what the legislature has appropriated, both new programs as well as notable changes to existing programs, and then of course how the board intends on how the budget has been split out into the different sections. So this year, we are budgeting to $6.9 billion. Although when you look at the appropriations, it's just a little over $10 million. This amount right here does not include closing and beginning non-lapsing balances, as well as local funding. That's all part of the overall public education appropriation, but we do not budget for those particular items. On the pie chart here, you can see the majority, like always, of our funding comes from state funding. There is a little bit of difference this year compared to past years because this does now include USDB's funding. So it kind of tips things a little bit where they actually receive a little more in revenue transfers. That has kind of changed our percentages a little bit. Next slide. This is the detail. This is where really all of the work is. This is how our budget has been broken out by our individual sections within the agency, by category of personnel, travel, current expense. But our biggest ticket item is really the flow through. At the end of the day, that's where the majority of the dollars are. And the call outs really here are the two MSP line items, which are the basic program and related to basic, which totaled just over Well, the basic program is 3.4 billion and related to basic is 1.9. The rest is support. So next slide. Here we kind of break out by percentage, so it's easy to see by category how the budget is spent. And over 90% of our budget is flow through. That's flow through that goes to not only our LEAs, our districts and charter schools, but also some CBOs, community-based organizations, or direct grants that the legislature has identified. Typically our personnel costs are a little bit lower than this 1.63%, but because USDB is now added into this, USDB's personnel costs are 90% of their budget. And so it's actually pushed our personnel cost just above 1% this year. Our next biggest category would be our current expense, which is where a lot of our bigger contracts are. That's where things like Utah Fits All is.
Chair,
What's the other one? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Chair Hymas, go ahead.
Chair, are we waiting for questions at the end? I don't want to, I just interrupted Deborah. I get it. And I apologize, Deborah.
You're
I
fine.
just had a question on the CBO.
I think it might be easier to ask as we go along, if you're okay with that, Assistant Superintendent Jacobson, because we've got the right slides up.
Yes.
Okay, then go ahead, Chair Hymas.
Thank you. For the CBO, what did you call it? Community-based something?
Community-based organizations.
Community-based organizations. How
Yes.
much, I can't see, and because I'm driving dangerously here, but I can't see how much we put into that. And one of the questions, I don't know what the exact amount is, but one of the questions that we had during this session was not necessarily with the PEA or EAC, but why are we paying community organizations, and what are we getting out of it, right? Because I felt like some of the cost that we paid was benefiting the organization, not the LEAs. Have you guys looked at those? And I know Scott, I believe Scott was part of that conversation or question, and I'm not trying to pull him in, but I just want to, this is touchy to me because I know that we have an obligation to our communities. I get that, and our LEAs, but that money is sacred, and I don't want to spend it where we don't need to.
So a lot of these community-based organizations come from like the fine arts outreach, where they're sending grants to like Ballet West and those art organizations.
Like POPs?
Yes, it's the POPs program. That's exactly what it is. And then
Legislatively funded.
outreach. Mhm.
And we had that discussion, and we agreed that that was worth the money. I just wanted to,
Yes.
and maybe staff, staff knows where this goes. I don't. And so that's why I was just wondering if we are careful with this, and if the board has had eyes on it to say, yeah, we want it to go to our arts programs, right? We've already agreed to that and discussed that in a board meeting. But if there were some legislators who said, no, I don't want it to go to these specific areas, right? And so anyway, I think that's a little bit touchy, not only to me, but to other board members, legislators, and community members at large. So thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Jones?
And I think too, though, and Deborah can correct me if I'm wrong, but just for a value add for the committee, the public, the board, the legislature was very good about identifying not only the CBOs in the space of IC and POPs, but how much precisely we're to distribute to them. So they're all listed in legislation. Is that correct? Through the chair, Deborah. Yeah. So back to Chair Hymas, they actually did take the opportunity to list all those out so that we could provide the direct amount to them. Those community-based organizations. So a little bit different there, a lot more specificity on the part of the legislature for us to fund those. And this is another opportunity for me to say that We've really tried to reach out to the CBOs. The Utah State Board of Education does not donate funds to community-based organizations. We distribute the amounts that are listed in the legislation. We're not a donation activity or a foundation type aspect to any of the CBOs. That's all distributed funds. So if a CBO does list on their website that or thanking the Utah State Board of Education for their donation, that's absolutely incorrect. It's a distribution of appropriated funds. So.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Assistant Superintendent Jacobson, let's continue.
Sure. So I just wanted to add on the CBOs, our child nutrition program, as part of the child nutrition program and the federal grant, we also send funding to child care centers, some adult centers. So those are actually considered CBOs as well. So just to kind of share that. Okay, next slide.
Deborah, so I'm sorry. Why would we send money to child care centers? Are we paying for child care? I'm sorry, Chair. This was what my thought was, and I'm trying to gain some understanding. I can take this offline if it's not appropriate here, Chair. I'll let you decide. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but I'm wondering why we're paying child care services.
Well, let's take this one because members of the public might have a similar question as we're talking about this. So, if we get too extensive, we'll maybe have to circle back at the end of our agenda, but let's ask these questions as they come up while we have a bit of time here. So go ahead, Deborah.
It's actually a portion of the child nutrition federal grant. So there's a part of the CMP grant that is dedicated for that purpose to provide meals to the child care centers.
So we're not, and the child, Chair, if I may, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The child care centers, it doesn't matter who's in them, whether it's public, private, homeschool, it doesn't matter who goes to them. We pay a portion of meals to them, but we're not paying for child care. We're just paying a blanket money to the child care system for meals.
No, it's not a blanket. They have to qualify. They have to do all the things that the school districts do, or the LEAs do to qualify for meal reimbursements. And they have to, follow the regulations of the federal grant. So it's not a blanket amount, and it's paid to them per meal cost, just like the LEAs receive. I believe, however, they have different amounts.
To Chair Hymas's question, are private, like preschools, for example, included, or is it only like district and charter publicly funded preschools that are included?
I don't believe it includes preschool. Well, we'd have to double check that with Kim.
Is it like only the Head Starts kind of things, or is it going out to private childcare also?
Yeah, I believe these are daycare centers
that are privately operated.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we can continue.
Okay. So listed here, we have our new programs that were appropriated this year with one-time funding. Most of these are appropriated either out of Senate Bill 2 or House Bill 3. Senate Bill 2 typically tends to be our adjustment bill. It's where we find our technical changes. You see a little bit of reallocations in there. Our technical changes will be in Senate Bill 2. And then sometimes there's a few RFAs that can come through Senate Bill 2. So the big real ticket items here are the 3DE by junior achievement. And the dyslexia screening program at the 3.5 million. Next slide. Sorry, mine's not moving as fast. Here's the one-time, most of our funding this year, any new year money was actually one-time funding. So we've got a comprehensive school improvement pilot for 4.5 million. The school bus internet access is on here. However, my understanding is the governor has vetoed that. So I will adjust this slide to identify that for the May board meeting. And then there's an infusion of $28 million for increased cybersecurity support, which is supposed to be over a 4-year period. Next slide. Oops. Our ongoing funding this year they're considerably smaller. But the big ticket item for here was the literacy interventions, where they've actually reallocated funding to create this program and move it out of the board's budget, side of the budget, and into the MSP programs. It is now related to basic program. And so they've taken several smaller literacy programs and combined them into one here. The other piece that they had done here is they've broken out the college and career counseling, which has always been in the CTE add-on portion of the basic program. Excuse me. And they've broken it out into its own program. So it's very clear what its intentions are for. Next slide. Public Education Stabilization Account, the legislature actually appropriated $395 million. These are all one-time funded. There's quite a large list here. They appropriated $35 million for the Apex Center. They did a charter school-based funding amendment of 3.6. Adobe Cloud. Sorry, at 6.7. Next slide. Here again, you see the comprehensive school improvement pilot at 4.5. Of course, the enrollment growth hold harmless at 77 million. Next slide. CMP will be receiving 2.5 million again for, this will be the second year that they've received this funding for the reduced price school lunch. So that program will continue. And then there's the 12 million for the school curriculum and standards modifications. Oops. Next slide. There was 3.6 million, which we'll kind of get to for STEM endorsements. This money is actually intended to phase out this program. And then, of course, another 12.4 million for the stipends for future educators. Next slide. On to the notable changes for existing programs. Of course, we increased the WPU by the 4%, bringing the WPU up to 4,870, and also funding the enrollment growth. You can see here again the actual reallocation of money from CTE to the new program for college and career counseling. There's also a $24.8 million increase to the student at-risk add-on. Next slide.
But may I stop for a quick question? Back on that slide. So what was in the end, the total percentage increase on the WPU? And did that include the inflation and growth that's already entered into the law?
Yes, this is the statutory required increase to both the WPU and the enrollment growth.
And so what was the percentage on the WPU then increase?
4%.
And then
actually, man, 4.2.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
4.2.
4.2%.
4.2%. And then there were no increases on top of what was legislatively mandated in code.
No.
Okay, thank you.
On to the related to basic, there's a lot of there, you can see the reallocation here of in pupil transportation. This money was intentionally reallocated for USDB. USDB's transportation cost used to come from this funding source. They are now doing a direct appropriation to USDB for transportation. So this no longer comes off of the top for the LEAs. Let's see, the 18 million here reduction for digital teaching and learning. This actually eliminates that program altogether. Next slide. Oops. Next slide, Kenny.
Schuster has a hand up. I don't know if he has on this slide.
No, I just, Madam Chair, if I may clarify, so the value of the WPU increased by 4.2%, but the 4% that Deborah's talking about is what the legislature is saying was an increase to the MSP overall. I think it's roughly around 3.9%. So I think this is a good point to try to clarify or distinguish between the two, because a lot of the public and our education system are hearing the 4.2 versus the 4%. And so, I mean, Deborah's right. I mean, there's an increase of the value to the WPTU, but that's 4.2%. But then there's an overall increase to the MSP was, about 4%. So just to ensure that when you hear those two numbers, the 4.2 is associated with an increase to the value of the WPU to get us to 4,870. But the MSP as a whole, they're saying it increased net around 4%. So.
Because we had some reductions in other areas.
Well, so this is the first year where we've seen such a large amount of reallocation of funds across different programs, but the end result, maybe I'm not using the correct term, net 4%, right? Is that by virtue of new money and the reallocations, it claims that an overall increase of around 4% to the MSP as a whole. So, where Deborah is presenting this without local funds actually make up a big portion of that 4%. Those increase the estimates on local funds increase like 12%. So that all plays into the 4%. When we present this to you, rightfully so, under the Budgetary Procedures Act, that's why Deborah try to make it clear at the beginning that, we're backing out beginning, ending balances and local proceeds. But then when you hear the narrative around the MSP, because you have the basic program, the related to basic, and then the voted and board, the net increase of 4% includes the local funding too. So, we're really wanting to try to make sure to distinguish between different things in the processes that we take with you, but it all is in accordance with the Budgetary Procedures Act. Because when you do this, it translates to consistency in the estimates that were provided, the LEAs. And then, as you know, you don't set their budgets, their local boards do, but we have to provide them accuracy, dependability, and consistency in what we're tracking at this level so that, and that's why, too, Deborah does a great job of distinguishing between what money basically stays at our level and the flow through. That's why she emphasizes that as well. So
I would love to have, and thank you, a breakdown of the total percent of increase for this coming year.
Okay.
And then out of the total percent of increase, what percent comes from
voted and
property,
boarded.
what
Okay.
comes from
Yeah.
state, and what comes from federal.
Sure. We can add that as part of, not being presumptive here, but if the committee pushes this out to the board, we can add that as additional information.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. Thank you. All
Sorry.
right. Sorry, Assistant Superintendent Jacobson.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Um, to our sections in student support services, they've received some money for the attendance modifications. Also an increase of 75,000 to suicide prevention. Next slide. Most of these we've already talked about. Here you can see the reduction in the science outreach. That was because that particular community, there's a community-based organization that had closed, so they pulled that money back. Here you can see the STEM reduction of $1.2 million. That actually eliminates the program that's its current in FY26. That's its current budget. So by reducing that, it eliminates the program. However, they also appropriated 3.6 one time to phase that program out. The National Board Certified Teachers also received a full reduction of the program for closure. Next slide. Education technology systems, management systems received an increase of $1.9 million. That amount right there actually includes the reallocated amount of $599,000 that was the admin portion to the digital teaching and learning program. So we were able to retain those FTEs there. The software licensing for early literacy. This is one of the programs that was reallocated to the new literacy program and they're related to basic. So that eliminates this program.
Was Upstart funded?
Upstart actually was a program that was closed a couple of years ago. This is a portion of money that they continued to appropriate. So they just finished closing it out.
So wasn't it moved to the governor's
Yes, it moved to
office? And did they
Yes.
get like another 25 million ongoing monies again this year?
that part. I don't know. I haven't had time to look at anybody else's budget.
That's yeah, you've had your hands full with ours. That's
Yeah.
okay. Just
Yeah.
wondering because they've
I
tried
don't
to
know.
get rid of digital devices, in schools K-12, but that money's buys devices for the preschool use.
Right.
So it seems a little counter I don't know.
Yeah, so this is just
Counterintuitive,
a
I guess.
portion that was they continued to appropriate to us, but now it's finally
gone.
closed. It's completely gone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next slide. Sorry. Here you can see the digital teaching and learning. This is the admin portion, so that was reallocated. And that is it here. Well, on teaching and learning, sorry, not digital teaching and learning, teaching and learning, assessment and accountability, and career and technical education. These three reductions are the staff efficiencies reductions that the legislature had recommended originally on an ongoing basis, but they actually reduced it by one time. So instead of ongoing. So next slide. The early literacy outcomes is one of the other big programs that they had reduced or closed out and moved the money to the new literacy program. So that was reallocated there. Another 35 million for the Catalyst Center was given, and of course the 28 million for the cybersecurity. And those are the most notable changes in our budget and where we kind of landed. So with that is all I have, unless there's any other questions.
Not seeing any hands. That's a great report. Thank you so much. But we need a motion. Vice Chair Kelly?
Yeah, I got my hand up for the motion, if that's all right.
Perfect, thank you.
The Finance Committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education adopts the 2027 state fiscal year budget.
Thank you. And seeing no other hands, we have a motion on the floor that the Finance Committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education adopts the 2027 fiscal year budget. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. That was a heavy lift. Appreciate all your work on that. All right, let's move to item 1.4. Request for use of Utah State Board of Education discretionary funds for development of playground equipment. I don't know who's speaking to this necessarily,
I
but
can, ma'am.
I can speak to
wasn't
it
sure.
too.
Well, right. So I wasn't sure if board member Earl was going to come for this one or not. So, because there's
Well,
three
member-
board members that have asked for this. So,
Yeah, and member Hall
but-
asked if he needed to come. And I
Okay.
felt like the additional piece that we got in backup
Yeah.
answered a lot of the questions. So I said I didn't think he necessarily needed to.
Okay. Yeah, good, ma'am. Then, yeah, you've been.
So I'm just texting member Carey so to tell him his item is up next.
Okay.
But I can just kind of speak briefly to this. I know I was not one of the original 3 members that requested this, but they are working on trying to get some all abilities playground equipment into schools. And I know that it's a little tricky to use funds when you're thinking about facilities and capital and such. But this one would be kind of a special experimental kind of situation where they would do some research looking on involvement of students with special needs and typically developing peers and their levels of interaction and such before and after, so that if others did want to scale or if we wanted to look at different avenues later, we could continue something like this. I'm just going to speak personally. We did this at our own elementary school in our neighborhood years ago, but it took years to earn the money to do this. This is expensive equipment and it's so needed. And, maybe something like this will help folks to determine when we're building new schools that this is just something that's maybe automatically considered when we're building instead of something that we need to retroactively do. But personally, I think it would be a great opportunity to at least explore this at this time. And Member Hall said to me this morning that they are still trying to earn private funds too, so they may not need all of what was requested here. And what was the amount that was requested here? Can we show that again?
250,000, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
well, from the FML, federal mineral lease specifically.
Yeah. So, do we have we have Vice Chair Kelly, your hand is up. Go ahead.
So the 250 would be for several of these, right? And so there would be an application process where various schools could apply to receive a portion of those funds to complete the project. So there was more than just the one built into this number. I just wanted to clarify that.
So, Madam Chair, my understanding is yes, and the Vice Chair Kelly explained the process that we would take. Unless it says otherwise, and I didn't see where it says otherwise, it would be more along the lines of a competitive type grant, right? Because one of the key pieces of making sure that we're allowably using federal mineral lease money is there has to be some kind of measurement by way of experimentation of doing it that, what difference it did make or didn't, it does, but the whoever applies for the funding to build or put in the playground equipment would have to also track it, if there's some kind of objective and or subjective outcomes for the students on it. Yeah, so you can see the project description here. But then if you scroll a little bit further down, and it's kind of number different, it goes from 2 to 4, but then you have an evidence-based thing, which really does support the allowable use of FML. But short answer to Vice Chair Kelly's question is yes, we would try to array it where we could maximize the funding and then they had mentioned too that they were looking at fundraising and other aspects to help with playground equipment. So
Thank you. And I'm trying to call Rod Hall too and see if he can come in here to answer some of these
Because
questions.
I do think yeah, Madam Chair, I think that would be great if he could, because I do think this was generated a lot by the area that those board members are over. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to, misinform the committee that, well, it, would be open to the whole state, but there are particular LEAs I do believe the board members had in mind for this, but it would help to clarify, well, it should be more than one.
Can you run in here right now? Members have questions about your proposal. Come to Claudia and turn right, and then she'll come to Claudia's desk, the main desk, and she'll show you how to get in here. Thanks. Bye. He's coming in right now from law and licensing to answer some of these questions.
Because I am a little bit concerned related to Vice Chair Kelly's question that maybe they did intend that all 250 would go to one district. But if that's the case, then we need to make sure that that's vetted. But
Sure.
when we use that, it's more along the lines of how you describe. So,
Okay, and Chair Hymas, go ahead.
My question's more related to Scott. I don't know if Rod could answer this. Scott, you kind of brought it up. It's a cross between your comments, Vice Chair Kelly's comments. How many schools? I mean, is there a cap on the grant? If it's a competitive grant, you say, okay, but we're only providing you with, 50,000 each, and that covers 5 schools. To do this right, would it all go to one school? I don't know how much this playground equipment costs. I know when it comes to special needs, everything costs more. That's just the nature of it. And so I'm wondering what this would look like financially.
Sure.
And how many schools we could in fact help, because if we say, yeah, we'll give, 250 schools, X amount of dollars each, 10 grand each or something, I don't know. Then what is that like? Okay, well, that gets them half a swing set. I don't know what that looks like.
So Member Hall is here.
Okay.
And can we have him answer that question? Member Hall, did you hear the question?
Some of it, my guess is that's how much would this be allotted per school? Is that correct?
Yes, they want to know, is it open for a grant so all schools can apply, or is it for a specific school?
So
and then how many it would cover?
That was the idea, right? That a different school would apply each year for this. The playgrounds, Matt, to answer your question, the specific one is about $140,000. That has to do with demo, replacement of asphalt around it, and just getting it up and ready to go from start to finish is about $140,000 to do that. And no, that's very expensive, but these are very intricate playgrounds. They provide access not just for kids in wheelchairs, but all different types of needs can be met with these playgrounds. You probably saw what we had listed out there. Sensory needs, there's group play, there's all types of ways to be able to interact, all kids to be able to interact on these playgrounds. So they are very involved, and they do cost a lot of money. And so the grant could be laid out to maybe where it was $25,000 to $50,000 per school, whatever we decided on. You do kind of want some community involvement too as well. So that's kind of where this school's already been raising funds for it. And Cindy, you spoke to this to me earlier that it does take a long time to raise money that way. And I think I would really leave that up to the committee and to the board to make the decision on how we want to proceed and move forward. I mean, if you gave $10,000 to every school, it would probably be years before they could really raise the money to get these playgrounds. If we were to up it a little more and maybe have one school apply a year, I could see that, being a great benefit too as well. But I think it's a great opportunity to be able to really build a community.
Yeah. So if you'll stay with us for a minute, Member Hall,
Mhm.
I just, and I can have my understanding corrected. I'm fine with that too. But my understanding is this is a one-time expenditure out of FMLA money, not FMLA, Federal Mineral Lease dollars. And that has to be used for experimentation and research type of a thing. So this would be at a specific location, not open to the whole state to apply for a grant. It would be at a specific location that Member Hall is suggesting this research happen. And then there is a research component taking baselines of what the interactions are between students with disabilities and typically developing peers, what that looks like. And then if it were to be scaled at some point in the future, some different revenue sources would need to be found, or maybe it would be a legislative initiative or something of that nature, because you don't do experimentation every year. That's why this pot of money would work for this year for one school. And are we understanding, Member Hall, that you have chosen the school?
Yes, and the particular school, Bloodbridge Elementary School, the teacher has 16 years in special education before she became an administrator at this school specifically, and so they have a large amount of young people that are in wheelchairs. When I visited the school, I was just blown away by it, and and they're out on the playground watching the other kids play, and of course, I was deeply moved by that. But she had already had plans in place to try to get an all abilities playground set, but just coming up short when it comes to the funds. So this would definitely be a great place to do that. And if it does work well, I mean, to Matt's point, we could probably expand that. How that would look, that would really be up to the full board to make that decision how that would look moving forward. So.
Thank you. And I did mention to the board that we had done this at my elementary school, and it took a long time to raise the funds. It's very expensive. I've got hands up from Deputy Jones and then Vice Chair Kelly. So let's go to Deputy Jones and then Vice Chair Kelly.
Well, so this is great, clarity from a funding aspect or standpoint. So the $250,000, and this maybe just for clarification through you, Madam Chair. So all $250,000 would go to this one elementary school, or 140,000 of it would go to this one elementary school, and the $110,000 would be available to everyone. I think that's could we clarify that? So because we heard the term, or the request is for $250,000 overall, but the estimate on one school playground equipment is 140. So I mean, yeah. So would 140? Yeah, go
Already
ahead.
raised about 25,000 at this point. So as well.
Chair Davis.
Yes, Vice Chair Kelly.
Yeah, so my question was very similar to that. So I'm going to add to what Scott said. I'm curious, in our motion, should we split? We have 200. Should we, in our motion, specify that would go to one rural school and one urban school, and we allocate 125,000 to an urban school and 125,000 to a rural school, and look at the data and see how that plays out at two different schools.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea, Member Kelly. And of course, I'm speaking out of turn. I'm just not my committee, but I just wanted to say there's schools out there that have applications. I mean, they've already begun to raise money for these, and you might want to research and find out who those people are, and it could help. Maybe they already have some funds towards that already, and so where the needs are.
And Member Hall, you had cut out a bit. Did you say that the total cost is 140,000 and the school has already raised 25,000? Then why is the ask 250,000?
No, I'm not sure. Jenny, help me with this. I'm not sure why that. No, I didn't even realize that number was in there, but that's not how much is needed. So that's not you guys can kind of help us determine how much we need moving forward.
So you need 115.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Hymas?
Thank you. I love the idea. I love the concept. Here's my concern is I understand that Member Hall and Rod, you're super awesome. But I don't understand. I think this is new territory where it happened to be that Rod was at that school and saw a need, and now he's advocating for the state to pay for that need. This is, to me, this is a sensitive area, as we don't typically have board members saying, hey, I need $150,000 for this school, for this equipment, right? I'm fine to saying, hey, we've got some money, we saw a need, and we recognize that schools throughout the state have this same need, and we open up a competitive grant. But to just say, yeah, this particular school gets whatever they need to get this done, and then the rest can put in for a grant, I'm nervous about that.
Thank you.
I agree with you too, Matt, that it could, we have to be real careful how we approach, but this is a great opportunity for research and development too, to really see how this works. There's not a whole lot of schools that have these all ability playgrounds. This is a great opportunity for us to really be able to see how fruitful this is in a school like this and in the community too as well. So, and then we can move forward and think about, maybe offering grants, statewide each year to be able to participate in something like this.
Yeah, one more follow-up, if I could, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Again, part of my concern, if this happens, are you, Cindy, going to get a call from one of your elementary schools and they say, this is what I need? You know what I mean? I know I'm beating this to death, but it's a serious concern. And if I were an LEA and I heard this, I'd be like, dang, I'm calling Matt Hymas and I'm gonna show him some need here. You know what I mean? We saw this with the we did see this with the legislator and the sports facilities when they had roots coming up out of the track, right? And so I would prefer to handle it in a similar fashion. Scott, Cindy, you remember this was our committee. We handled that when it came through legislatively. They didn't necessarily go to that school and fix it, but they said, here's the money. We see this. We recognize it statewide. Here's some money. Now apply for it.
Several can apply. So I see this on two levels. I see this as, I understand 100% what you're saying also, Chair Hymas. There is some precedent for doing something like this. For example, we set the precedent with the math, and I don't know if that ultimately went through the full board or not, but we did pass through committee where we had the after-school math pilot through research and development monies, and it was just in the Ogden area, this same area. So there is some precedent. So it's not fully in left field, but I do understand the concern, and I do think it's valid for sure. Not that you care that I think it's valid, but I'm just saying, I see this from both lenses here. Deputy Superintendent Jones.
Well, and Madam Chair, I mean, just for consideration, always to duly inform and not unduly influence any of the decision-making process. Board Member Hall is correct in the sense that the federal mineral lease money is designed for research, development, experimentation for future decision-making. what I was trying to emphasize at the beginning is if you were to go this route where you're experimenting with one particular elementary school, they would really have to do their due diligence to set a baseline for students and really articulate what they're trying to measure, right? So by putting the playground equipment in, what are they saying will happen, and how will they capture that and how will they develop that? And that the experiment does, because that's the acceptable use of this money. So it can't just be, well, let's just experiment with this. There has to be some kind of quantifiable, and part of it can be subjective, but there has to be some objective result of this in order to use this type of money for that purpose. So there's not necessarily an issue with, well, we're only doing this for one school. Well, you're only doing it for one school to use that money
For the research.
to research and develop so that it would inform you as a rulemaking body or as a policymaking body in the future to maybe request that the legislature set aside or appropriate funds specifically for playground equipment in the future. But that is the whole key takeaway here from and again, it's a neutral, unbiased piece on the use of funds, the acceptable use of funds. You need that level of commitment from that school to try to address the concerns, and rightfully so, that Chair Hymas and yourself and others have brought, that if this is the direction you want to go, they would have to commit to a very experimental but quantifiably researched thing saying, hey, before these kids had the playground equipment, they were here. After they had the playground equipment, they were here. And I don't know what here is. I'm just an accountant, but that's really what has to be done here. Because then, and so maybe you just, change the 250 to 140 or,
Will be 115.
I'm sorry, yeah, 115. But
Yeah.
that's the key with federal mineral lease money is there's nothing against doing it for one school, but then it's always about answering the why are you doing it and what is the, intended measure.
Because the point is that we want to learn things that could be scaled potentially later if they prove effective. Member Hall, is there a time-sensitive need here? Would it be possible to postpone this to come back to committee next month and have the school put together a plan of who and how they're going to gather both quantifiable data and anecdotal data, and then how that's going to be presented back to the board?
I do know this, that if they had the money, by the first part of June, they could build the playground and have it up and ready to go. That's already been approved by the district, up and ready to go by the beginning of this next school year. They've already been approved. Usually you have to have all those requests in by May, but they know that we're trying to raise the money to get it in there. So I think they'd be approved to do that. And I think you'd be impressed already with the email that she sent me that has the quote for the playground. They already have a vision for this and what she believes it will accomplish in the school, how it will impact the community. And I think that you will be surprised that they've already got a lot of this done. Like I said, she had 16 years in special education before she came in as a principal of this school. And so she already has a great vision for what she believes this playground will bring to their school. And they fit the mold because they have more kids in specifically in wheelchairs than any other school in that area. So I think it would really fit the mold.
I think everybody would agree with everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that everyone would agree that all the things that you just said. The piece that we need from them is a research plan.
Okay.
So that we can use the money from this particular pot. So if we have this come back to committee at the beginning of May, would the school be able to put together a research plan and how it's going to be reported back to us once the equipment's in and the data's gathered? And then we move it to the full board to the beginning of June. Is that going to work for the timeline?
I think so. I think Scott can help. How long does it take to release those types of funds?
So these, Madam Chair, through you, the funds are available right now. So we wouldn't, if the board were to approve it in June, we could release the funds, subsequently to the board approving the use of those funds for that.
Immediately.
Yeah. But the funds would go to the district. My understanding is this school is within a district, so the funds would go to that
Yep.
You know, we wouldn't send them directly to the school. They would go to the, okay.
That's right. Yep.
To be used for that purpose.
Yes, yes. Well,
But we've got
for the
another
purpose
hand
that
up
the
here.
board establishes, yes, for that money. And in line with allowable use of federal mineral lease dollars, yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kelly.
I'm ready to make a motion if the committee's ready for that.
Okay.
Are
Go
there
ahead.
additional comments that are needed? Or?
No, we just need a research plan. That's what we need. So go ahead and make your motion and make the motion.
Yeah, I move that the Finance Committee recommend that the Utah State Board of Education. Hang on, I'm looking at the sentence that's on our sheet here and trying to reword that. But
do you want it to come back to committee with a research plan next month?
I think so. I think that would be wise. Or I guess before I make that motion, maybe I could ask, would it be appropriate to move it to the full board and have the school come propose that before the full board in May?
Yeah, I think you could do it either way. You could have it come back to committee and we could review the research plan and then make sure it's ready for full board. Or you could say that you make this motion contingent on the research plan being made and brought to the full board. You're just going to take possibly longer in full board, but that's okay. We've done it both ways in the past.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll move is if Chair, if that's appropriate.
Sure. Which one?
Let's move it to the full board, contingent upon what's the name of the school, Board Member Hall?
Bluff Ridge Elementary School.
Left Ridge?
Bluff Ridge.
Bluff Ridge. Okay.
Can you spell that? Is it Bluff? BLUFF?
Like it sounds, yes, just like it
Bluff
sounds.
Ridge. Okay. Bluff Ridge.
Okay.
Bluff.
Okay. I was hearing love and all kinds of other things. So
Yeah. Bluff Ridge Elementary. And then I think so then are you going to move
that's just my
100
bias and
the 115?
Yes.
Okay. So I think what you would do is that you could read it just as written and then put 115 in place of the 250.
Sure.
And then maybe say
can-
contingent on a viable research plan provided by the school.
Okay. All right. Well, I move that the Finance Committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education approve the use of $115,000 of federal mineral lease for a playground project contingent upon the school providing to the full board in May their research plan.
That works. And then I think, thank you. I think Cammie's driving. I'm not sure. Thank you, Cammie, for doing all this. I think in place of the word the school, I think we need to put in Bluff Ridge Elementary.
Yeah, I agree.
Ma'am, if I may.
Yes, please.
Just for consideration, I recommend though that you actually flow it through the district, right? Because the districts operate the schools, so it would be beneficial to know that it's coming from the bottom up, right? That it's coming from the school to the district to us.
What's the district?
Davis School District.
Yeah, Davis.
So maybe what we need to say is
But I would also say that Bluff Ridge is who we're asking to make that presentation, not necessarily the district.
Yes, madam. Yes, ma'am. Vice Chair Kelly is spot on. However, as I said, if the board approves this, we would distribute the money to the district, and the district would be accountable for the acceptable use of that money, not the school. So you have to, I'm just, you don't have to, but I'm just
I think we should
suggesting.
say at the end through Davis District. Just add the words at the end through Davis District.
Okay.
And then Cammie, if you will, where it says for this playground project, I think we need to say for all abilities playground equipment.
Mhm.
So let's see how that will read. The Finance Committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education approve the use of $115 of federal mineral lease for all abilities playground equipment contingent on a viable research plan provided by Bluff Ridge Elementary School through Davis District. Does that, I've got some hands up, but
I know.
let's think of,
So just procedurally, ma'am, I mean, so
Mhm.
what this implies is that they will prepare the research plan with, baseline data and what
Mhm.
the intended outcomes are to the full board when you get to this agenda item to do that. Is that what you want? I mean, is that,
Yes,
so,
that's what I'm hearing
okay,
from Vice Chair
okay,
Kelly.
right, yeah, so.
Vice Chair Kelly, is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Thank you. Chair Hymas.
Thank you. If it's not coming back to committee, which I'd prefer, but I'll ask the question now then. What, if I can ask it to Rod,
Mhm.
what,
Good.
what data do you think they're going to provide that will satisfy the federal mineral lease requirement? Do you have any? I don't have any idea. I'm wondering if, and I don't know if this is the first time it's been brought up to you, because we look for pots of money and it's like, okay, here's some here, here's there, right? Oh, let's use federal mineral lease. What data are we looking for in order for me next month to say, oh yeah, this is great? I mean, I could probably say, yeah, the kids really enjoy this. I could say that before it's built. I mean, like what are we looking for here? I'm going in blind, I feel like. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. I mean, I'll do my best with this, Matt, because I don't know either, but I would guess data on how these playgrounds have impacted schools and communities before, and then maybe with some intended outcomes of what they hope to see happen as a result of putting this playground into their school. You can see some of that data already that we put in backup. Some of that's already there, not with percentages or anything like that, but and also the sources that we got it from quoted in backup too as well. So I would guess something along those lines. Scott, do you think that would be sufficient?
Yeah,
And I think you
Chair-
would also do rates of participation and interaction between special needs students and typically developing peers.
So Madam Chair, if I may, to address that question is what we really need to do is emphasize that the board's, one of your primary goals is academic excellence, right? So the research presentation to you, whether it comes to the full board in May or comes back to committee, not being presumptive on this particular motion, really has to align with the acceptable use of funds, which is for research, development, experimentation, but then also should align with your strategic plan, right? This funding is the board's funding. So the board has the right or to say, okay, if we're going to give you this money, then we have to show quantifiable, or you have to demonstrate that that there will be quantifiable results. If they don't make it, that's a different issue. But it just to Chair Hymas's point, the public is always concerned with ambiguity of, well, the kids are having fun, or federal mineral lease dollars are designed to do what I think they really want to show. I see that in the backups, like Board Member Hall came up, but it would be very beneficial if both the district and the school were to come and say, we really need this money to research this, to really demonstrate that this makes a difference in these areas and quantify that, right? That's what they would do. So, and really try to look at your strategic plan as the base for that, like, academic outcomes might increase, or, it's not a contract or anything by any means. I mean, but that's the great thing about this and the use of these types of funds is really to try to, generate out whether or not, building playground equipment so you can make future decisions on that aspect and see if you guys want to ask for more money from the legislature or continue to use FML to develop this more outside of just this one experiment.
Follow up, Chair.
Yes, Chair Hymas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that, and Rod, I appreciate that as well. I would recommend. First off, speaking to this motion, I'm gonna speak against it because I do think it needs to come back to committee so that we can look at these things. If it goes to the full board, I will we'll handle that. That's fine. But this is $115,000. I'm not in a huge rush to just give it to a school yet, even though I see the need. But I don't want it to come back on us to say, no, it doesn't meet the requirements, and we've already committed to this school, and so now we're feeling guilty. Like, okay, how do we find the money somewhere else? I'd rather it come back to committee so that we can go through the process. And along with that, I'd like to make sure that the school understands. And again, if it comes to full board or committee next month, regardless, we need to get that to them. And I'm talking to Rod at this point. We need to get them our strategic plan so that we can feel confident as we have been pushing academics and an increase in knowledge, understanding, participation, all those things that we agreed as a board, rather than just saying, yeah, we want a better recess experience for these kids, even though on the public record, we do want all kids to have fun at recess. We want them to enjoy their time at school. I get that. And I know to the public, I probably sound like a monster. I get that, but I want to be protective of this sacred money at the same time. Thank you, Chair.
So are you putting a substitute motion on the floor to bring this issue back to committee with a viable research plan, or just with a research plan? We're going to determine if it's viable or not. But are you saying?
Thank you. I don't have a substitute. Quite frankly, I would have put no motion forth and had no motion to move forward so that it stayed in committee. That's my thought, without jumping through the hoops of motions. Or if somebody else wants to make that motion, that's fine. I can support that. But again, I'd rather see this come through committee. I'd rather vote this down so that we keep it in committee and move forward.
So you just want everyone, I mean, you're just hoping this doesn't pass so that we can bring it back. I'm just gonna, so we have some clarity here, and it doesn't seem like we're just voting down a motion if that's the way it goes. I'm gonna make a substitute motion that this agenda item come back to committee in May with a research plan provided by the LEA and or school. I would just put a / Davis District, because it's kind of both we're working through. So this is my substitute motion on the floor, that this item returns to Finance Committee in May with a research plan from Bluff Ridge Elementary and Davis School District. Would anyone like to speak to that motion?
Christina likes it.
Okay, I'll speak in favor. And again, this is not to take away from, because I agree with everything that's happening 100%. I just want to do it right. You want
to cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yes, thank you.
And I think I heard I'm looking at Member Hall and I'm seeing Member Bogus's name, but I think I heard her say you support this motion.
I'll just sneak in so you can see my face. I do support the motion. Yes.
All right.
And this is Member Booth, and I support this motion as well.
Okay, we could probably go ahead and vote then. I'm seeing no other hands. There's a substitute motion on the floor that this item returns to Finance Committee in May with a research plan from Bluff Ridge Elementary and Davis District. We'll just leave it like that way. Bluff Ridge Elementary / Davis District. Those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you. That passes with Member Kelly opposed. or Vice Chair Kelly, I should say. Thank you. All right, thanks, Member Hall, for
Thank you, everyone.
joining us and helping us understand better. Let's move on to Member Hall,
Yes, ma'am.
will you ask Chair Carey? He mentioned he'd be available for questions. I think there are going to be questions on his agenda item.
I'll let him know.
Thank you so much. I texted him, but when you go back in, if you could just put a bug in his ear, thank you. It's not like he's not busy chairing a committee meeting or something. Appreciate you, members. Member Bogus, your hand is up still, but I think it might be from leftover.
Yes, ma'am. I am coming back. I do not have a hand up for any other reason. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks. Vice Chair Kelly?
Yeah, Member Earl did ask me to kind of speak to this next item 1.5.
Okay.
So.
Do you want to start speaking to it then while we're waiting to see if Chair Kelly can Carrie? Sorry, I've got Kelly and Carrie on my brain right now. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Go ahead.
And the idea the idea is a listening tour, if you will, for board members to go around to the 15 different districts in Utah. But the dollar amount that is recommended, many of us thought was significantly higher than what we were thinking, and I know that amount included, food and feeding people and things like that. And one thing that I know Board Member Earl has done is really try to streamline this process and make it so that it's more of a listening tour. And Board Member Earl has been able to bring that cost down to $35,000, and that would just include facility rentals, and then just travel and I think pay for board members that would attend the meetings. And so the $150,000 amount I know has been adjusted. I don't think that those who were in favor of this recommended action wanted to have a price tag of that amount on there. I think it was more an effort to really get out and very similar to what legislators do after the legislative session, where they'll have various town hall meetings and a legislative wrap up, if you will, but in an effort to get board members out in the public, and listening to what the communities are saying. So.
Do you know, on my sheet I have 7 regional meetings, but you said in all 15.
You know what? Yeah, I do think that it originally it was 15, and I do think that was adjusted. So I think that it would be 7 regions and not necessarily all 15 districts. So yeah.
So when I talked to her trying to get a little more information, I understood it would be like in the highly populated, like an Ogden, Salt Lake, Utah County, like a Davis County, Salt Lake County, Utah County, and then there would be one in each of the 4 quadrants of the outer areas of the state. Is that what it is now?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. Deputy Superintendent Jones?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, just for some clarity. So what is in front of everyone right now, or at least is on my screen, is that $150,000 estimate. One key piece, component that's not clear in here was that there was the talk about potentially having a facilitator as well. Somebody like Mighty Penguin, or, some that like they facilitated. You're not saying that them or not committing to anything. But that really didn't get wrapped into there too. So that's another reason. So the meals, estimating what if the decision was, it's not to say that you will do that or you shall do that or anything, but what really is missing in the $150,000 estimate is whether or not you would want an external facilitator. That was mentioned as part of the dialogue and stuff too. So, there's the facility miscellaneous amount that's 10,000. That should really actually be the other one should be adjusted down, and that facility miscellaneous, we said incidentals and meeting room requirements, but really that should have said facilitator consideration or two. So, this was just the initial out of the gate, just verbal discussion. We emailed board member Carrie, a couple of times then subsequently, and rightfully so, other board members got involved and then did, pared it down to Vice Chair Kelly's point, to where you're at the 35,000. So we were just really trying to capture all of the considerations on the timeline to have it into the backups and, to get to where we are right here. This is not binding or anything like that. It just, and people can argue, well, there won't be 7 board members at every meeting, but we did plan this initial estimate that, was subject to exactly what happened, to amendments or those types of things. We just tried to plan as if, there would be 7 meetings and each meeting would have 7 board members at it. Now, do we know that that's likely not going to happen? Yes, but when we're in the budgetology realm, it's kind of like, well, we need to budget as if, and try to do that. And we were also really, but we didn't do a good job of it, I'll own that, of capturing that additional consideration of whether or not you'd want to pay for an external facilitator.
So then so we're asking for 35,000 instead of 150,000. Is that what I'm hearing? And then what does the 35,000 pay for? Do we need to?
So go to the next one, go to the next document that captures that. So basically the biggest difference, there's no facilitator, no meals, and, likely not having 7 board members, attend other. Now there is a difference here. The one says 7, but this also adds, I think we're at 9 in this one. If you'll scroll down a little bit further, it shows that this one actually has the regional, having them at the regional education
Service
services
centers. But there are only 4 of those, aren't there?
Well, there's 4, right? But then there's a chart somewhere in here, I thought. Yes, right here. So you see the 4 education services centers, but then there's those 4, then you go Salt Lake County, Tooele 5, Salt Lake County, Lehigh 6, Ogden, Logan area
I see.
7, St. George
and Provo.
8, Provo, Orem, Payson 9. So
Okay.
kind of 9 locations, right? So yeah, that's feasible. That's, there's nothing to do it. But the difference between the first iteration of an estimate, we were really trying to capture all the as ifs, right? Just really trying to do that. And then just thank you for allowing me to try to clarify too, that there was some talk about potentially adding a facilitator, right? Having somebody, an external firm facilitate the meetings as well. So we were just really trying to capture all of the ideas and estimates and so these are not competing estimates. It's just, if you don't want to serve meals, if you do want to serve meals, if you don't want to, if you want to have a thing, we're really just trying to duly inform you
Just
all.
from the beginning of the vision to what, through conversations, it's kind of what it's gotten to now.
Right.
And we're grateful that Chair Kelly from the he's in the middle of chairing the law and licensing department. Committee. Thanks for stepping away and joining us. Can you speak to this for just a minute and then answer any board member questions?
Thank you, Chair.
You've kind of heard some of them.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to the committee for the time. What gave root to this was, I think a lot of times we ask these individuals to come to us to meet with staff, and we ask all the questions. And I think that's important, but equally important is I think we need to show these individuals on the front lines that we also want to hear their ideas, that we want to be exposed to what they're seeing, not only from parents and students, but in terms of these rules that we pass, to hear their feedback, what's working, what's not, what could be better. And I think that by taking board members to these areas and truly listening, we develop a stronger relationship with our partners, but also then we have the opportunity to improve our systems, both internally and externally facing. And so I'm grateful for Scott and staff who really helped us get to a point where I think fiscally it makes sense to execute on this, and also the logistics to make it happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That background, I think, is really helpful. Vice Chair Kelly?
I'm wondering if we could go back to that list of locations. I'm curious to see if we feel like, and I can't see it. So if you don't mind reading what those 7 locations are, I kind of want to make sure that we're broadly
Sure.
covering the state.
I'd be happy to. What's listed is the 4 corners of the state at the regional service centers, the Qs, the News, the SEDC, and the SESC. So those are the sort of 4 rural corners of the state. And then if you could scroll up a bit, then they have listed 1, 2, 3, 5 additional meetings. One says Salt Lake County Tooele, one says Salt Lake County and Lehigh, and one says Ogden, Layton, and Logan area, and one says St. George, Cedar City, and one says Provo, Orem, and Payson. And I would probably give Salt Lake its own, and well, I don't know, because when you look, Tooele is kind of far out there, and then Lehigh has all of those surrounding cities too. Lehigh, Highland, Alpine, American Fork, Pleasant Grove. That's kind of a big area too, but that's what's listed. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Chair Hymas?
Yeah, I don't know if it's too early to ask logistical questions, Chair. I'm gonna defer to you.
Go ahead and ask. We'll see what if Member Carey has the information.
Okay, yeah, Joe, in your vision, and I've been approached by this as well from stakeholders, quite frankly, in my area, in the Tooele area, and he called me and said, Matt, he does advertising, marketing. He says, I got a great idea, right? And he pitched a very similar thing. The board should get out there. He's like, people don't know. People don't honestly know. They read things online. They hear from others. They don't know what's true and what's not true. And the best way to do that is to get a group of board members in front of people and answer questions. And I said, I think it sounds great. I think it sounds great. Time and money, those are the 2 resources that we don't usually have those. So logistically, Joe, if I could ask in your vision of this, how long is each meeting? I'll just ask them one at a time if I can. And if I could, if I could go lawyer mode on Joe, I would love to do it, but I don't know how. I'm not as experienced as he is, and I don't know the answers already. So Joe, how long are each of these meetings? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I think it's at least half a day. I think that we go there. I think, in my vision, and again, this is all subject to the will of your committee and the board, but I think we go and we share a little bit about what we do and our vision and our priorities, but it's a very small part of the meeting. And then I think we turn the time over to those who are attending. And I think there are some areas of focus that we address, and that may be, chronic absenteeism. It could be funding priorities. But I think there's something that we bring to the table saying, this is what we want to know about. I know at lawn licensing, we have an increasing number of districts seeking waivers to our 5-day rule. And now with Doug Welton's bill, that's going to accelerate these changes. Maybe that's something that as a board, we prioritize as a topic that we want answers to. But after those two things, I really think it's opened up to the stakeholders for them to say, this is what's on our mind. What are you guys, whatever path they want to take. And so, but I do think that this is at least a 3 to 4 hour commitment.
Okay. So with that, we would need to feed them, right? If this were 2 hours or less, it'd be like, no, eat on your own. But with 3 plus, we would need to feed whoever came in, whether that was a box lunch or something. We'd have to look at that. And then the other question I have is, would this be the same 7 or group of board members, or is it done by region? Is a member of leadership in each meeting? Do you know what I mean? How does that look? If the same group is traveling, are they doing hotels? What's your vision there? If we've gotten there, that's why I asked if this was too early for that. But just curious.
One of the things that, I bounced around was I do think that it's essential that, the board members that represent that area attend that meeting. But outside of that, I think I would defer to leadership. We did talk about, should we have a member of leadership participate in each of these? I think that's important. But also then those empty spots, if we can take 7 to each area, I think if there's extra spots after we have the assigned, the board member whose area that is, a member of leadership, those empty spots then I think could just be you sign up. And if someone wants to go, they can go. And if too many have signed up, I think that becomes a decision for leadership. That's the way that we talked about it as we put this together.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure I'll have more questions as this moves forward, Chair Davis, but thank you. And thank you, Joe. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, is this time sensitive? Is there a certain time that we want to start this? Because I'm wondering if it would be possible to bring it back to committee in May, because on the backup that we were given, and I can't remember who made this, it might have been Board Member Earl, it says a 60 to 90-minute meeting. And it outlines how the agenda will roll forward and what questions will be asked and what feedback will be gathered. But I'm not sure, and you probably haven't had a chance to see this. We barely even did because it came in after, because we had asked questions of the other presentation. So to no fault of anybody's, but just as the process moved forward. So there's this question between how many hours, how many minutes, is there going to be food? Is there not going to be food? Because I know one member, Aaron, had said, no, we don't want any food at this. But now Matt's saying if it's a certain amount of time, we need food, but we have a board policy that says we don't provide food at any training or meetings except for on our Thursday board. So we would have to just adjust some things. Is it feasible for the 3 who had recommended this to maybe go through what's been submitted in backup and do a bit of more fleshing out and bring that back in May? Or is it time sensitive enough that we need to push the idea forward and flesh it out in full board in May?
I don't think so. I think this is something long term. And so I think that let's get this alignment internally, and then we can represent to your committee next month.
I think that would be really helpful. But I personally, I think it's a great idea, but I think it'd be really helpful. Not the idea to come back, but the idea to have a listening tour. Vice Chair Kelly.
Anytime I get a chance to tease administrators, I like to do that. So when Matt thinks that a 3 or 4 hour meeting requires food, I have to give him a hard time, because that's definitely an administrator mindset. But I also just I wanted to ask Joe, and I'm curious because my understanding, and maybe this is a question for Scott too, but if all 7 board members, if there's 7 board members attending 7 different listening tours, doesn't that push us above the 35,000, does that, I felt like we were kind of settling on saying, no, if the, if it's in your area and that meeting includes, your area, then those board members attend. And so if it's in Utah County, then Matt and Member Booth and myself and, would attend. But then if there's ends up being 7 at 7, does that increase our costs?
Madam Chair, through you, yes. The short answer is yes. I don't see how you could, that's why I tried to emphasize earlier that the initial estimate, and it clearly says it's a draft, right? Trying to consider all the input that we got, was as if 7 board members would show up. Now, that's not the whole reason for $150,000. There's other consideration, meals, facilitator, no facilitator. But yes, if the decision were to allow, and we did have 7 board members at 9 different meetings, $35,000, I don't believe would cover that. So
Maybe
So that could be fleshed out too before
it could
next
be.
month.
Yeah.
Sorry, Member Carey?
No. I agree. And we just wanted to do this without paying the piper, right? I mean, to do something costs money and it costs time. And we were trying to look at this and say, well, how do we do it without costing time or money? And so I think it needs to be revisited, and that's on me, and on all of us, because I know we all want to spend very carefully. But I do think this particular endeavor, it needs to be done, and it needs to be done right. And I'm just surprised at sometimes, and I think Chair Hymas, alluded to this disconnect between things that we do and we think it's just understood in the field and vice versa. And I think just breaking down those barriers and increasing that communication directly is going to pay dividends far into the future. So we will rehash this and resubmit it to your committee, Chair.
Thank you. Chair Hymas?
Apologies, my hand was still up, but I do appreciate the sentiment. I'm going to speak to the motion that hasn't been made, and that is I do support it coming back to committee. Thank you.
Chair Davis, I can't find out how to put my hand up.
Oh, please go ahead, Member Booth.
So I have really appreciated in the legislative process, the town hall meetings that Senator McKell and others in our area have hosted, and we've had tremendous attendance. I mean, there is a very great excitement among parents and constituents, and they are eager to express, what they have not always had a venue to express themselves in. And so I think that this is timely and important and will inform our decision-making process. I fully support taking it back and working out some of the details in terms of cost and logistics and bringing it back. But then I would hope that we could get it implemented as quickly as possible so that we have that feedback to inform our discussions leading into the next legislative process, rather than in the fall when everything else is already hitting. That's when we start this, and then by the time we could implement any of their ideas, it's going to be another year and a half. So I would love to get this input coming back to us sometime in the summer, late at the very latest when the school year is beginning, so that then we have a chance to talk about and prioritize and prepare ourselves to make some suggestions through the legislative session.
So like in late August or early September, you're saying would be the most helpful?
So, yeah, something like that.
I'm looking to see if we have any other hands. And
Chair.
yes, go ahead.
All right, one more question for Joe if he hasn't gone back to his committee yet.
He's here.
Joe, as part of this, I'm wondering how close together these meetings are. Are they, 7 meetings in 7 days? Are they 7 meetings in 7 weeks? Do you have a vision for that as well? I'm just wondering if we are going to have traveling board members, you know what I mean? If we have somebody who's, there every single day, what does that look like? Any thoughts on that? Or maybe that's something that comes next month, but just something to keep in mind as well is how close are these meetings? What do they look like? Is it a Saturday thing? Is it because it's a work night for, if we can't do it in the summer, then it's a work night for all the educators, or a work day on the weekday. Anyway, I won't lay it all out, but something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, Chair Davis.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So we thought about that too, and what we didn't want to do is have it spread out over 3 or 4 months because we need this information, but we also didn't want to do, the 7 meetings in 7 days or 9 meetings in 7 days. But I think the cadence, I would defer to staff and just also board member availability, right? I mean, Chair Davis may want to go to not only her district, but it's important that she goes to a neighboring district. And I think we can map all that out. But again, not trying to place this at the weight on the board leadership, but I would defer to leadership and staff to say, look, this is the best cadence. This satisfies most of the needs, and we won't be able to hit everyone in terms of where they want to go and availability. But it has to be that sweet spot, as Member Booth said, for us to get this vital information and enough of it where it becomes actionable.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And for example, I represent people in Utah County, but I also represent people in Salt Lake County. And I think some of our board members do cross county lines. And so to kind of get that figured out, it would need a little bit of scheduling. So I appreciate those comments. I'm not seeing any other hands. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we revisit the listening tour proposal at our May Finance Committee meeting. And sounds like some of the logistics will be able to be fleshed out a bit more, logistics and costs and expectations, and that will come back to us in our meeting. Seeing no lights or no discussion to the motion or hands, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Member Carey, for joining us. We know that's a sacrifice since you're chairing a meeting right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to the committee.
And I think we're going to go ahead and move our agenda and change, because we have had some folks that have been waiting to speak to us. We're going to move item 1.8 up and go ahead and do that now so that we make sure the folks that have been waiting get a chance to share. And let's see, we've got Dale Frost that's going to start us out, Minimum School Program Administrator Dale Frost. And then I believe that Courtney's going to share some thoughts after Dale. And Royce Van Tassel just walked into my room, so he may have some thoughts for us too. I don't know. Welcome. Welcome to all of you. Go ahead, Dale. Maybe. I see his screen. He may not have anticipated us moving this agenda item up. Well, Courtney, do you want to talk to us? While we wait for Dale.
Oh, Chair, I'm sorry. This is Dale Frost.
Oh, no problem.
I stepped in and heard, and I said, I hope she's not talking about me.
Oh, your ears were burning.
Okay, so we're on item 1.8. Is that
We changed our agenda because we want to make sure that we give folks time to speak that are here for this particular agenda item. So yes, we've moved it up.
okay? Yeah, so I had a few things to show you, but due to the lack of time, I'll just give you the very high level overview. So committee members, Dale Frost, Minimum School Program Administrator. So if you remember back in November, we showed you that R277479, which is the rule that requires us to update special education allocations for new and expanding charter schools, would have reduced budget significantly for a subset of expanding charter schools. You forwarded to the board and the board approved a waiver for fiscal 26. And then we came back and talked about these ratio caps to get these charter schools whose WPUs had gotten inflated due to a quirk in the formula, that there was no right sizing mechanism in the rule for years. So that's where we stand right now. Courtney England from Spectrum Academy reached out in March and asked, well, let me back up for 1 second. There was specifically in the rule, if you go back to those ratio caps, an exemption for charters with more than 60% special education kids. The reason why we did that is because the level of impact, and this only applies to Spectrum Academy, nobody else is close to that. Spectrum is in the 80% range or so. The level of impact of implementing the ratio caps would be 4 to 5 times greater in magnitude for Spectrum than any other charter. And their cuts would have been greater than all the other charters put together. So it was, it wasn't that my intention was to say, let's never address the Spectrum issue, but it was more to say that, let's address the issue for all the other charters and then figure out at another point in time what to do for a Spectrum Academy. Then they reached out and said, hey, we got approved for an expansion with starting in school year 28. Would that affect us? And I said, you are exempted from the ratio caps part of the rule, but if you become an expanding charter school, the part of that rule doesn't exempt you. And so that prompted this conversation. We were going to have this at some point anyways, but this made the conversation a lot more timely. And so, there's a number of policy options you have as the board, and or you can work with the legislature as you want. But we wanted to kind of give you an idea of where Spectrum Academy stands, what their request is on their expansion, and how the implementation of the rule as it stands would impact them. So I hope that helps. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And this was agendized as an information item. So this really is for a conversation for members to try to wrap their head around the situation. And then I'm assuming it may come back again here to the committee again next month. We have, I believe, I'm looking to see if she's still here. Yes, Courtney England from Spectrum Academy. Would you like to share some thoughts with us? I know that we've had a meeting outside of this committee with you to try to prepare and understand this better, but if you could just briefly share some of your thoughts. We don't usually do this. We usually do this in public input time, but we've done it a little different this time. So go ahead, Courtney.
Thank you. My name is Courtney England. I'm the Executive Director of Finance for Spectrum Academy. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. Is that something that is allowed, or should I just kind of just run through my presentation quickly here, since I know time is a factor?
Courtney, I don't know if you can. Cami can bring up the presentation that's in backup. That's your presentation too. Are you able to do that, Cami?
Yep. Hold on just one second.
While she's doing that, I just want to note that we have Liz Banner here as well from Spectrum.
Okay, thank you. So that's just my title page if you want to scroll along. So I'm not sure if everybody on the call here knows about our background, but we have been around for 20 years now. We started with just a small group of parents that were really frustrated with the educational opportunities available for students with autism. So they took it upon themselves to start up a charter school, and 20 years later, here we are. We're dedicated solely to the academic, behavioral, and social success of students with high functioning autism is really what it was termed back in 20 years ago. If you want to go on to the next. Our mission statement, Spectrum Academy is the premier charter school in Utah for students with autism and other neurodiversities who would benefit from our unique learning environment. We provide small class sizes with individualized instruction and an innovative social skills curriculum. We help students reach their fullest potential academically, socially, and emotionally, leading to productive and successful futures. So just a little bit off of the slide here, we do have about 1,600 students right now. We've been approved to expand into St. George for up to 300 more. And as Rule R 277-479-3 stands today, with this expansion, it will force our SPED add-on WPUs to be reduced from 3,564 down to 1,863. Next slide. Yeah, this reduction in WPUs reduces our SPED add-on funding by a total of $8,240,600. An $8 million reduction equates to a 20% overall reduction in our entire 2028 budget. Currently, over 80% of our budget covers salaries and benefits. So taking a 20% budget cut in our SPED add-on basically forces us to reduce our staff, which would be our related services staff, our para staff, and even our teacher staff. Just some data. We currently have, if we're including our anticipated St. George numbers, we have about 81 employees in our related service staffing, which includes behavior staff, over 30 behavior staff, 7 certified occupational therapist assistants, 8 mental health staff, 3 nurses, 10 occupational therapists, 15 speech language pathologists, 8 speech language technicians, and then up to 300 paraprofessionals. So if we cut a third of the staffing that I just mentioned, which would be about 127 employees, that would still only cut our expenses by 5.5 million, and that's including benefits. We would have to additionally cut up to 50 teachers, which is 23% of our teaching staff, to make up for the shortfall. Or we would have to cut another 83 paras, which would leave 127 out of 300 paras. Next, yeah, thank you. The effect of these cuts is basically we would not be able to cover the required IEP minutes for our student population. Our classroom sizes would increase while our para support would decrease, and we would be operating with a much smaller behavior support team on staff, while we would anticipate higher behaviors because of the larger classroom sizes. Bottom line is we don't see any scenario where we would be able to continue operations at all if we were forced to take a 20% SPED add-on funding hit. So if rule R 2774793 stays as it is, we will never be able to expand, even though the need is great. The public wants it. St. George wants it very badly. The solution is obviously to have any charter school with a SPED prevalence rate higher than 60% be exempted under the expanding scenario also. So that's just kind of a very quick outline of what this would do to us. So.
Thank you. Can you clarify for me? And I was listening to you and looking at your slides, and I asked a question of Director Van Tassel as well. But is this so? If we implement the same rule that we're implementing for everyone else, this is what will happen to your current existing campuses, or this whole slide deck is specific to a potential expansion?
So my understanding in talking with Dale is the expansion will trigger our exemption, our current exemption, to go away. So it would affect our entire charter, including our current locations. If we don't expand, then as the rule stands today, we're okay. We're not going to be losing any of our funding. It's just that expansion piece would take away that exemption for us.
Thank you. Chair Hymas has a question. Go ahead, Chair Hymas.
I listened to the presentation here, and I appreciate the work that's gone in. She could have easily, I could take this entire slide deck and put Excelsior Academy on it, or Summit Academy, or X Academy on it. You know what I mean? We're all suffering with this. And this is, we had this conversation a couple months ago, right? Like, this is not something, I know the legislators like, no, we're putting you in line. Everybody's going to suffer here. So if Spectrum Academy is exempt, where does that money come from? Does it come from my school? Does it come from somebody else's school? Where does that exempt money come from? And if there's this pot of special ed money that is for exempt schools, then why are we adjusting the ratio at all? I'm struggling to understand this. And Chair, you and I had a somewhat similar conversation of what does it look like moving forward? And so again, how do we help all schools? This is not unique to Spectrum, although I do recognize what Spectrum does, and I would fight to keep them. In fact, I'd love to see them in every county throughout the state because of what they do and how they help other schools. But in the meantime, what do I do for my rising IEP population and decreased IEP funding in Tooele County when my school carries a higher percentage than any other? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have Minimum School Program Administrator Dale Frost with his hand up. Go ahead, Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to make sure and clarify just a couple things. And Courtney, in your slides, there are a couple places where you said this right sizing to a ratio of 1, and I want to explain kind of there are two different scenarios at play here, and one applies to Spectrum if they expand. The other one currently doesn't apply as the rule would be written, but that there's more than a 20% cut to your SPED add-on budget. The cut would be a 20% cut to your overall budget. Is that correct, Courtney?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to make sure because, all right, so if you remember those ratios, we were talking about, the intention is that LEAs be somewhere around 1. Most LEAs are a little above 1 because of the growth pieces of the SPED add-on formula. The districts range from 1 to 1.35, which is why in the rule we're ratcheting down all other charters except for Spectrum, and only Spectrum because they have such a high ratio of special education kids. Any other charter, if they were, to give you an idea, some charters are in the 20 to maybe low 30% range, but Spectrum's in the 80% range. And so a cut to Spectrum's, because the special education budget is such a large part of their budget, this impact is outsized compared to any other charter. So I would say that first. So what scenario are we talking about here? If you remember, the rule as it was written wouldn't go down to the 1.35. It would immediately take everybody to 1. And so when Courtney's talking about this scenario, the $8 million cut, it would be taking Spectrum, who's at a 2.6 right now, down to 1, where the rule as it stands will over 3 years phase in the caps down to 1.35. So what's the difference between 1.35 and 1? It might be instead of an $8 million cut, it might be a $6 million cut, but it's still, the story is the same. It's still, almost existential to Spectrum. I don't want to speak for them, but in terms of size, nobody's having to take a $6 million cut or, under these scenarios like Spectrum would. So hopefully that answers the question that what was presented would be if we applied the expansion provisions in 2028. So the good news is none of this we're talking about is for next year. It's for the following year. That would be because they would be categorized an expanding charter, and they would get only 1 WPU per December 1 count. So there's that piece. So they're kind of in this conundrum right now where, either something needs to happen on the policy side, or Spectrum is basically stuck without being able to expand because they'd have to take such a large hit to their special education budget. Is that fair, Courtney?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does that help? Happy to answer other questions, Chair.
I'm just looking at hands right now. I'm not seeing.
Would it be
hands.
helpful for me to quickly talk through possible scenarios or options for committee members or the board to consider, or would you want to leave that for another discussion?
I think we could. Well, let's see. 7:38. I think we could take a few minutes to talk through scenarios. It's hard to look at this as a budget cut because we're talking about additional monies that were inadvertently allocated. Well, they weren't allocated inadvertently. We just didn't have the true up piece of the formula at the end.
Correct.
So, but yet when you build a school based on what you think is your operating budget, because that's what you've been allocated, then to say, oh, now you've got to change everything up. That's where we get in a very difficult conversation. So go ahead and share some of your.
And I'm not going to go into many details on this. I also forgot to answer part of Chair Hymas's question. Where is this money coming from? This money is already built into the base within the special education add-on formula. So if this had to happen, it would be an $8 million savings to the special education add-on formula, but but borne exclusively by Spectrum Academy. So I wanted to answer that. It's not that there's any request for additional money. It's already built into the base budget. So what can be done? Well, if nothing happens right now and there's no change to statute or rule, I assume Spectrum will operate. They can grow within their existing campuses, but they can't expand beyond that. So you could exempt Spectrum from the expansion part of the rule. That's within your purview. You can work with the legislature and request a specific exemption in the actual formula for a high prevalence rate charter school or any LEA. And I also wanted to give, the piece that I didn't bring up before, the reason why as staff we felt comfortable recommending what we did to you was because a little bit of history, the impact aid cuts that happened in the 2025 session, the legislature put an intent language, specific language to exempt any charter from those cuts that had, or any LEA that had more than, I think it was 50%, it might be 60% special education kids, because they were trying to avoid cutting the administrative sped dollars for Spectrum. So there was already some legislative precedence for that, and we communicated these rule changes to LFA. And I don't want to speak for them, but there wasn't great opposition from LFA folks on this, because understanding kind of the unique nature of Spectrum. So there is this tension, though, where yes, right now we do have this kind of double standard, and I don't know what the right solution is, but where we stand right now, Spectrum really can't expand, and so their school year 28 expansion plans are pretty much on hold until there's clarity on this issue, is my understanding. And so, those are really the options. Do nothing, do something in rule, and you could do something narrowed, tailored narrowly or broadly, or work on something in statute with the legislature as a legislative request. Those are kind of the options.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I may have to switch computers in a second, so if you see me disappear, I'm just changing to another machine. Vice Chair Kelly.
This may be a little bit of a tangent, but I've got to through the chair ask Courtney. I'm a big fan of On the Spectrum, and we watched it the other day, and I think Spectrum was featured in that. Were they not? Was Spectrum Academy featured in that show? Are you aware?
Did you say Love on the Spectrum? You cut out.
Yeah. Love on the Spectrum.
Would you like me to answer that? I apologize. So
Yeah.
Sure, Liz, go ahead.
My name is Liz Banner. I'm the executive director of Spectrum Academy now. We do have some past students on that show, Love on the Spectrum. It was filmed at Scenic View Academy, which is one of our collaborating partners. But yes, we do have some former students on that show that just aired. They
It's
are
so awesome.
super excited, and I've gotten a few emails to watch them and to see what happened on the show.
All these students becoming famous.
Thanks for letting me go on that tangent. Thank you.
Do we have other questions? I think what we're going to have to do then, between now and when we come back in May, is really kind of mull over the options. What do we do? I mean, I'm more inclined to seek a legislative line item, because it's just going to be hard for us to say and Chair Hymas and I had asked a question. I thought that the sort of exemption was in perpetuity for the existing schools, and he thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that it actually phased out as the students graduated and rolled back to what the funding was for everybody. So I think there may be some more need for more clarity around that. And then, it's just, you've got some schools that are 100% students with special needs that require nursing care and tracheotomy care and all this thing. And they're, it's hard because, to Matt's point, they're like, well, we have 100% in this school and we need special exemptions too. So I'm wondering if, like,
we lost her.
I don't know where she went. She just, I doubt she switched machines right in the middle. Maybe her power died or
There
something.
she is.
She did mention
sorry about
that
that.
she had to switch
That was my
computers.
cue to stop talking.
Okay.
It's the signs of the universe. And I will stop talking. It's just my brain wondering if we do something similar to like kind of a USDB situation. I don't know. But I have
This was an information item, right? So
just
there's
information. Yeah, I'm just musing. Liz Banner has her hand up. Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you, Chair Davis and Vice Chair Kelly. To speak to Chair Hymas's point, I understand that this is a significant thing for all of you on the board. Just maybe something to consider as we come back and talk about this as far as more information for you to consider. I've been with Spectrum Academy for about 17 years now. I started as a parent of a child that went to Spectrum Academy. Really briefly, you all know this, we're a school of choice and we're designed to meet the needs of a specific group of students, many who haven't found success other places. But what I've seen over the years of being at Spectrum Academy in my time, I have consistently seen that students who come to us require a higher level of support academically, behaviorally, and socially than what some of the needs are in traditional settings. Often I hear parents, just the other day as we did our lottery, I hear from a lot of parents that they were referred to Spectrum by psychologists or other healthcare professionals or even other schools. We get a lot of that. And this reinforces, at least from my perspective for our families, that Spectrum is not just a preference, but a necessary step to make sure their child can access the appropriate education. And I do understand there are pockets in districts that do have that 100%. I do understand that and probably don't understand fully as you do. But from my perspective, we do have that 82 to sometimes 92% of individuals with needs, and we do have the catheters, we do have the GJ tubes, we do have some significant things in it, and the significant behavior challenges as well. So I just want you to consider that as you move forward on that. I feel like what at least we're asking, and Courtney can chime in, I don't feel like we're asking, looking beyond our mission of taking care of something new, but we're just working to protect what we know have been successful for Spectrum Academy and for those students that are referred to us from even other schools. So over time, we feel like we built a model that meets the students where they are and to help them make meaningful progress. And I would just, the concern is without that adequate funding, we risk diluting the supports that we feel have made our success possible and not being able to continue at all. So thank you for your consideration and thank you for letting me take a minute when I know time is short. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Liz. We have certainly a lot to think about over the next month and appreciate the contributions from everybody today, the insights and the concerns and all of the things. We will take those with us in the next month and try to come up to, as our deputy says often, to get to what right looks like. Thanks, everybody. We'll go ahead and end that agenda item today and assume that that will come back again as an action item next month.
Thank you.
Well, do I need to assume that, Chair Hymas? What procedurally, do we need to make a motion to bring that back as an action item, or does the committee want to bring it back as an action item, or do they want to leave it? What is the committee thinking?
I'm happy to defer to the committee if it's on the agenda and you want to move forward. I think we could bring it to the executive committee and make a decision there. I'd be happy to support it coming back as we have continued conversations and understand. I know that Dale mentioned some options. I don't know if when we need to vote on anything, or if this is the reality. We've already taken part of this discussion to the full board. Are you saying, Chair Davis, that we need to vote on, is this like a waiver request? What is the next step? That's my question.
If we don't change, if nothing changes, then the those additional dollars continue in perpetuity on the main Spectrum campuses that are currently in operation. On the other hand, if they want to expand to St. George, then that triggers the new rules, which from now I thought would just impact their expansion. So they would be operating at a lower funding model in the expansion. But what I'm hearing today is that that would also trigger the exemption to go away, and they would be operating at the lower funding model for all of their campuses. So if we do nothing, then they stay status quo and don't expand, because they're saying they can't expand if they don't get additional dollars.
So my suggestion for you, Chair, and you can make this decision would be, if we want to put this in the hands of the board to decide, then we would bring it back to May as an action item for the committee.
Okay. Are you making that motion?
Yeah, let's make that motion. The motion is.
Okay, wait, hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm not sure. Matt was talking and Cole was talking. So Matt, were you going to make that motion?
I'm happy to make a motion, but I don't know if I'm cutting out because I'm somewhere in Idaho.
So let's have Cole then, I think, also started talking. So Cole, will you make the motion?
I did not start talking, but I was thinking the same thing. So
why did I thought
yeah, no,
maybe
the
it's
motion,
because he was cutting out. Go ahead and make the motion.
No, the motion that Chair Hymas was proposing is exactly what I would suggest. So I would make the motion that we bring this back as an action item on the Finance Committee agenda in May.
Seeing no other hands, there's a motion on the floor to bring this agenda item back to the Finance Committee in May. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Director Paula Plant so graciously texted and said that we could skip her item until next month. So we'll go ahead and put that trust land quarterly report onto next month. And then I'm sorry to do this for 1.7 and 1.10. Let's hold on those for a minute and talk about 1.9 in our last few minutes. I thought that we were going to change that to an action item for today, but it is still listed as an information item. So let's talk about just briefly, we had determined as a committee, and then the full board voted to have a working group on property taxes, truth in taxation meetings. That was thoroughly discussed by the legislature, and new code was put into place for that. We had talked about the monies and the caps. That was also discussed and drafted, but it did not pass. And then we had talked about the PTIFs, and we have Business Administrator Todd Hauber here to share with us just briefly, if he will, about what the current system is for transparency within PTIFs, et cetera. And I think Member Bogus had a question on that, because these are all pieces we need to figure out now. What is already being done? What isn't? Do we need to still move forward with a working group, or do we not? Because 2/3 of what we were going to do, the legislature covered in the session. But Director Hauber, would you be willing to share some thoughts with us?
Yes,
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm glad to share some thoughts. I also have some websites. I don't know if I can share a link or share my screen to show you some links. I can go either way.
Can he do that, Cami?
Yes, he should be able to. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to push a button and see what happens here. All right, so do you see a Granite School District webpage?
Yes.
All right, so on the concept or the idea of PTIFs, the balances of PTIFs have been published and made available in financial statements for many, many years. And so I was just going to take you through a quick walkthrough to show you where you can find it for granted. And then I'll talk about two pieces of legislation that makes the PTIF information available to the general public in a more consolidated way. If you're okay with that, I'll just proceed that way.
Please.
All right, so on the Granite District website, if you go to the top menu bar, you'll see district, and then for us, it's under departments. And then under departments, you'll see an accounting department. And under here, we have our financial statements. I'm doing a good job of burying it deep, but it's been available, and you can see the number of years that have been available. When you click on the most recent copy of our of our annual financial statements, you'll see for us, it's in note 2 that we report our deposits and investments, and the PTIF is an investment account. We earn interest on those holdings. So as you go through the account, you'll see where we're holding monies, and then we disclose, and here you'll see right here, the PTIF, we disclose how much money is in the PTIF account. And so you'll see that on other LEA's financial statements as well. And again, that's been available. Creditors have wanted to know that information. Oversight bodies have wanted to have that information. So it's integral to our financial statements. What's not so great is you got to pull up everybody's individual account if you want to get a bigger picture of districts or LEAs or even other governmental entities. Back in 2024, the House Bill 10 passed, which required the state treasurer to create a consolidated PTIF report. So I've now jumped over to the legislative website. So if you want to see that particular report that was required under House Bill 10, you can go under Research and Legal on their menu bar, and then go to Agency Reporting. Under there, you can go to Submitted Reports, because the state treasurer did submit this to the Political Subdivisions Committee. And under the search, you can type in treasurer, and you'll see the report that was submitted fall of last year. I'm not going to open that right now unless you want to look at it, but
Does it cover all the schools in a user-friendly format?
It covers all entities, all governmental entities. I'll go ahead and see if it'll pull up fast. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast, depends on the time of day that you jump in. Give it here one more second, it should pop up. In the meantime, so while this is pulling up, just so that you can see this, as the legislature looked at these numbers, and this is what started the conversation a year ago about what are the balances that governmental entities are carrying, how large are those, have they grown recently, is it appropriate to have that much? They found out that the PTIF account is not the only investment strategy allowed under the Money Management Act. And so in the subsequent session, in the 2025 session, the auditor was given the responsibility under House Bill 475 to capture all of that information and make it available on their website. So I'll take you there in just a second. But this is the evolution of making all of this data available. In between those two sessions, the state treasurer was invited to put a report together on investments, and a task force was formed. Deputy Jones and myself were members of that task force, and on their website, which I'll take you to next, you can actually see the information that they had pulled together. This is the state treasurer's website. If you go under for government, you'll see Asset Investment Review Task Force. If you select that menu item, you'll see the report that was produced by the state treasurer with the help of the task force. And it gets into much more detail about the accounts, the trending of those accounts, the history of the accounts, etc. So there's another piece of information that came from a task force. This is newer information. This was just made available to the executive appropriations in December of last year.
So that wasn't the 2024 task force. This was literally just like 6 months ago
Yep.
that studied this and how to make
Yeah,
this more
so it
transparent.
started with this report that I'm showing you now. This is the one that was from over a year ago that spurred the question, well, what's going on?
Okay.
And why are these balances here? The task force wanted to understand that, but also there was an interest on how can we best use these funds. If we're going to be investing them, how can we best use the funds for the state of Utah to further economic development within the state? So when you look at the Asset and Investment Review Task Force, you'll have that flavor. It's the history of the accounts and why they are the way they are. And also, how could these be invested to improve economic development within the state? So that's that report. Out of that, along with the requirements of House Bill 475, the auditor's office then took over and created a dashboard. And so I am now on the state auditor's website. If you go under their transparency resources menu and go to Transparent Utah, they now have within their schedule of canned reports the investment report that includes the PTIF information. So on the transparency side, if you go under governments and come down to cash and investments, that's now a dashboard that they created that captures all of this cash and investment information, not just by LEA, but by all governmental entities. Cross my fingers that this will pull up, because this dashboard is very helpful because you can now drill into any type of entity, any grouping of entities, and get a better understanding of what their cash holdings are, how much money do they have in a PTIF account or in any other investment account allowed under the Money Management Act. So here you can see this is the overall view of where the investments are, how they're being held. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see districts, which are special service districts. LEAs are the education entities, municipalities, et cetera. And you can see the cash positions that are being held. You can explore by entity over on this menu ribbon. I've not figured out why Washington County is the winner whenever you pull it up, but there's just always the default. And I'll just pull up Granite for fun. And here you can then drill right into the Granite history and see what type of deposits do we have, where are we holding our money in cash positions to manage cash flow. And you can also look and see where do we hold our money, and primarily, if not solely, in the PTIF account, as well as there's historical information. In this case, it defaults to the last 6 years, but you can go back to I think it's 2015. So you can see the historical trends as well. So I hope that's what you were looking for and inviting me to come today is there is available information on the PTIF and how you can access that.
I think that's really helpful. Board members, do you have any questions? No. Okay. Thanks so much for coming today. That was helpful. And I think what we'll need to do is then bring that back again as an agenda item next time, as an action item, so that we can take what the legislature did with the truth and taxation meetings and the discussions they had about the property tax caps, and then the information that we're learning from these task force and auditors reports and all these new tools that we have with the PTIFs, to put it all together and decide if and how we want to move forward, or if we want to reverse that request to do a working group. And members, I have texted our fearless leaders in our fearless agency leaders, and we are going to go ahead and move items 1.7 and 1.10 to next month as well. So appreciate all of you for being here today. Any last comments or questions by members? Seeing no hands, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks everybody for participating. We appreciate all of you. And thanks again, Director Haber.